What if I told you I had the recipe for how you could leave your retail job and get a job at Google? Well, Eric, who we're interviewing today, did exactly that. And he's going to share with you his story. What's it like at Google compared to, say, another job you worked, whether it's tech or not?
Google has been my first job in industry. It's got a lot of similarities where I still got to work with a lot of people, even people that are not engineers, um, because previous jobs I had was retail, and I was a cashier, but I was also a manager. So just working with different sorts of people still applies at Google. So like I'm talking to engineers that know what I'm talking about, say when I'm working on a feature, but then I'm also working with UX and PM, and they don't have like the technical background that I have.
I don't know if a lot of people realize it, but even, in technical jobs, you still have to be able to get along and communicate with people and build those relationships.
At Google, it makes no difference, even if it's a really big company or a really small company, because I'll get to it later, but yeah, like working on my team, it's like a small, well-funded startup. My team, I work on Google Voice, um, but there is still opportunities to like branch out and work with other people that maybe you don't see as often. But yeah,
How did you get from retail to working on Google Voice? And what was that whole path like?
before I got into retail, well, retail helped pay the bills when I first got out of high school. Before that happened, I got into tech because of video games, and I'm sure a lot. It's a very similar story, but aside from playing the video games, I think in the seventh grade, I got hooked on making video games on the computer. So this is a little program called Game Maker. I don't know. I think it's still around. Where I was able to make a 2dimensional game where I just moved a face across the screen with the mouse. And it just started from there. Like my friends were watching me as I built it. I was like, "Oh, make it do this. Have something shoot at it," and it just blew up from there. So that got me hooked on like, oh, so you could code and kind of make things because I liked making things, but this is the very first time I ever was able to make something on the computer.
A lot of people might relate to that, like making things, wanting to make things, and coding and technology is really like a tool to help you make things, really.
And it was just a matter of finding like all these platforms. Like GameMaker was one platform on Windows, but then I quickly got drawn into the iPod Touch, and then I realized, oh, you could make your own with it. You just need this other platforms, just like GameMaker, but in this case, it was one needed a Mac and then Xcode and then go on, right? So that kind of went from GameMaker to let's get my game on this iPod Touch so people could play it. Like it was a game that you could kind of like move your phone to control the player or something like that, right? And I actually convinced my high school, um, like the tech lead or something of the district that kind of like manages the computers. I convinced them to put Xcode on their computers because my high school had Macs. So they got it on there and they turned it into like a class, like a period.
You were like, I want to take this game that I have, maybe make a better game, put it on an iPod Touch, and you just like figured out how to do that. You're like, okay, I kind of did something similar, but here are some new tools. Got to learn these new tools, and maybe got to go talk to these people who are going to help me with these tools. And you just went out there and did it.
Exactly. Yeah, it was just a matter of, like you said, translating it from like, okay, Game Maker land to iPhone, iPod Touch land. And yeah, it was getting the tools, and sadly, there was no one else like in like none of my peers, none of the teachers knew about this domain, building apps. So it was just trial and error. That's when it all started with iPod with iOS development was just YouTube, just looking stuff up. It was mostly just YouTube, and plenty of copy and paste. I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew is that this is what I needed to copy into my project. Awesome. It did it. Cool. close that video, open the next question, just like, okay, how do I do this other thing? And when something breaks, I just undid. I didn't know that, oh, I was working with an IDE. I didn't know what an IDE was at the time. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know that code was case sensitive or something like that.
And I'm assuming like once you got this exploration bug, it was just like a fire that was inside of you, right?
The fire started, and I knew I just wanted to keep going and see what I could do, on this iPod Touch. But not after that, it didn't take too long that I realized that, oh, you could make money off of this. People actually hire you for this. So that's, I think, just before my senior year in high school, just before it ended, is when I picked up a some client work. My very first client on Craigslist. Um, and they took a shot in the dark. Like they didn't know that maybe they would find someone. And we met, and we just started building a product from complete scratch. Here's the idea. These are all the pictures, all the screens, and then we just broke it up. All right, let's work on these screens. Let's work on these features, just 1 week at a time, kind of thing. Um, and it was it was scary. It was very scary because one, it was someone else's money, and two, this was going to go to some other users.
What is it like to, kind of have maybe a couple projects to try to get a client and what's that whole process?
I think what sold them was just like how much I wanted to continue to explore. And yeah, I had some previous projects that I think I showed them. Just like, oh, here are some of the apps that I've been working on. They look terrible, but I guess I've put so many things together that they function. They do some sort of function. And I think that's what mostly sold them. It's just that I demonstrated that I was just determined in this platform. Like I really wanted to just keep learning. And there was definitely a lot of things in this app that I knew ahead of time, like, oh, when they were explaining what the app was going to be, what it was going to do, that um, there was there was a lot of domains I just didn't know that was like in-app purchases, but like, oh, I'm sure I could figure it out. I've been just Googling. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Uh,
what was the end result and what happened with that?
I don't think that many users downloaded it. I think there was only a few, but it made it to the App Store. There was in-app purchases. I think they broke. Um, so you always had to be connected to the internet or something like that. But it was a very good uh, kickstart to what came next. After this, I knew this is what I wanted to do. Like I was sold that like I wanted to wake up, write some code on a product that I wanted to work on, um, and just keep learning. I graduated high school, and this is what I knew I wanted to do. So I started working into just getting a CS degree, because that's what you do, right? You go to school, you get the degree, and then you get the job. I didn't know any better. I didn't actually know about what came shortly after. Well, 2 years. While I was at the JC and I was still trying to build my own apps, I kind of I kind of felt into like a phase of like I feel like I'm not making too much progress. I'm making progress in a lot of places, but it's not getting me the degree and it's not getting me the career that I want to like jump to. So um, I kind of started looking for different options in like how can I get to the being an iOS engineer at a company, build someone else's app, or maybe just be my own boss. So then I heard of Make School. There's this other program that could kind of like help you teach, like they'll teach you iOS classes without having to go like Stanford or like another um, like higher education school, because the junior college didn't teach iOS. They barely just taught like 3 classes in CS, so they weren't going to teach about iOS. So I got hooked on like, wow, there's mixed school. Sure, it's over the summer, but then they have the product college. I'm like, wow, I should be there. From working with the client to like, okay, this is like the traditional route of like learning how to get into a job, basically the CS degree, and then came mixed school was definitely the next chapter.
That's it for this time. Tune in next time for part two, where Erick's going to talk about his experiences at Make School, cracking the coding interview, and finally getting into Google. Be sure to like, subscribe in there, and leave a comment below. Let us know how we did with this video. Do you want more videos like this? Let us know. Until then, stay awesome.